What's up, guys? Welcome back to another video. And with no further ado, let's get into my picks for week 5, starting with tonight's game. Thursday Night Football, Niners at the Rams. And it was just revealed last night that Brock Purdy, Ricky Pearsall, and Jauan Jennings all out for San Francisco. And I think Pearsall and Jennings are big losses. I don't know about Purdy. In the 2 games he's played, he hasn't really looked like he did before, which kind of proves that it was more so the team around him than him. So I do think Mac Jones will play well. I'm trusting the Rams at home, short week, the healthier team, and this LA team, you know, it's just the better team, and they're gonna go out there. The defense is gonna play well. The offense is gonna play well. But I do think it is something to maybe think about for the Niners to maybe just keep Mac Jones, who's looked better than Purdy so far. I feel like they should just keep Mac Jones out there, and it was a huge bad investment when they paid Purdy that much money. But you know, maybe just keep Mac out there until Purdy's fully healthy, or at least giving you good QB play, which is what Jones can do. Moving on to the London game, the Vikings traveling from Dublin now to London. So, first time ever a team's played back to back international games in 2 different countries. Taking on a Browns team that Dylan Gabriel starting for the first time, Joe Flacco benched. And I'm actually going to go with Cleveland to pull off the upset. Neutral site game. Minnesota going from Dublin to London, you know, and having to travel. Carson Wentz more than likely will be the starter. I don't think they want to throw JJ out there, at least before the bye in week 6. And I think they're just going to not look the greatest. Cleveland's defense, one of the best in the league, if not the best. And I think kind of like with Jackson Dart, like I think Gabriel can give this Browns offense something it really hasn't had so far with Joe Flacco. Not saying Dylan Gabriel and Jackson Dart are the same type of player, but saying like when a rookie or when a team brings in a new QB, usually for benching, I feel like that team rallies around that guy, and I feel like they're gonna look better on offense. And I think Cleveland's defense can stop this Minnesota offense that hasn't really looked the greatest. And I think the Browns could get a huge win to move to 2-3. Moving on to the Sunday slate, Giants at the Saints. Jackson Dart, could he start 2-0 and have this Giants team looking pretty good? It's possible. Spencer Rattler had a bounce back performance against the Bills. Um, looked much better than he did against Seattle. Um, and I'm actually gonna pick the Saints to win. I think New Orleans at home. We saw the first couple of weeks against the Cardinals and Niners. You know, they play well at home and even against the Bills on the road. And I think Rattler will be able to play well. I think without Malik Neighbors, this Giants offense isn't going to be um, as pass happy as it was. And the Saints defense that has actually been pretty good, I think, can make some stands. And I think the Saints can get their first win of the year. Moving on to the Cowboys at the Jets. Dallas coming off that thriller against the Packers that the tie. Meanwhile, the Jets could easily be 3-1, but 3 games, the week 1, week 3, and then last week's game against the Dolphins, all 3 games where they just made mistakes and lost themselves the game. I'm gonna go with the Cowboys. I think this Jets defense so far hasn't really looked like the best unit. They've given up huge plays after huge plays. I know they made some plays, but Dallas's offense is clicking on all cylinders. I think this will be a back and forth game because of how bad Dallas's defense is, but I'm trusting the better offense and the Cowboys to get a win. Moving on to the Broncos at the Eagles. Denver coming off a dominant victory against the Bengals team that clearly is nothing without Joe Burrow. Even though with Joe Burrow, the team really wasn't looking the greatest. So this team just might be that bad, and they just somehow won 2 games based off the other team just fumbling the ball, or not fumbling the ball, but like fumbling an opportunity to win. Philly, they've somehow managed to win these close games. Like it always felt like once they played a real for real contender, fully healthy, that doesn't make any mistakes, they could beat them. But they beat LA despite being down by 19 points and the offense looking horrible. And then they dominate the Bucks in the first half, then look horrible in the second half. But thanks to that defense, they just were able to secure the win. When I say the Eagles, I still don't think they're as good as their record says they are. I think the Eagles, you know, I think this team isn't as good as people are saying they are just because they've kind of beaten teams that have kind of beaten themselves. Like they've kind of won really because the other team made mistakes and Philly was able to capitalize. Moving on to a battle of the 1-3s. Houston at Baltimore. No Lamar Jackson. Cooper Rush will get him in the start. And I'm going Houston on the road. I mean, Houston's offense against Tennessee looked amazing. Like, it looked amazing. This Baltimore defense, with how bad it's looked and then how many injuries they have on it, I think Houston will be able to continue to get this momentum. And I just don't trust Cooper Rush against a really good Houston defense. So, giving the Texans to get back to back wins and maybe show that they could be, better than their early season struggles. Moving on to the Raiders at the Colts. Indy coming off their first loss to a very good Rams team. Raiders have lost 3 straight and now are going to be without Colton Miller. All right, give me the Colts. Indy's look like the better team. They're healthier at home, and Vegas just doesn't really have anything going for them outside of Ashton Genty. And I think Indy's defense will bounce back. I mean, they played pretty well against a really good Rams offense. It was just late in the game, the Indy's defense, which was on the field for so much time, they were kind of just exhausted at the end. I think against a not so good Raiders offense that hasn't looked really good all season for the most part, I think can get the win. Moving on, Dolphins at the Panthers. Miami coming off their first win against a not so very good Jets team. Taking on a Panthers team that got absolutely destroyed. No Tyreek. He's out for the year. I'm gonna go with the home team, the Panthers. I just think Carolina plays better at home. We saw that obviously against the Falcons, and with I think with how bad Miami's defense was early on in the season, I think Carolina's offense could be able to get some things going, and it's just without Tyreek, kind of trusting Jalen Waddle, Darren Waller. Panthers defense is pretty bad, but they have made improvements, and I think Carolina can get their second win and improve, hopefully, to at least be not a playoff team, but at least a good team where it's like they're going to be competitive throughout the year. Moving on to the Bucks at the Seahawks. Battle of the throwbacks, the creamsicles. Tampa's going to be wearing against Seattle's old uniforms when they were in the AFC West. But give me the Hawks. At home, Seattle's defense, might be the best in the league, up there with Cleveland, Houston, and some other teams. And this offense has looked really good. Sam Darnold has been, playing really well. JSN is contending to be a top 5 receiver in the league. And I think the Hawks at home against the Bucks team that kind of found ways to win against teams through the first couple of weeks that aren't really the greatest. Yeah, because I mean, I know Atlanta and Houston are better than the Jets, but they kind of found ways to win at the end, and I feel like this will be a good game, but I just trust Seattle's defense. This offense has been very good, and I think they can get the win. Moving on, Titans at the Cardinals. Arizona trying to end a two-game losing streak. Tennessee trying to get their first win of the year. Sorry, Titans. I got Arizona. I just trust the better coaching staff to get it done. I mean, Brian Callahan, this might be his final game he coaches if it's like a blowout and Arizona is like destroying them up like 30 points in the fourth quarter. You know, I mean, Tennessee last week made a Houston offense that hadn't looked anywhere competent somehow looked like they were one of like a top 10 unit. Like they made Houston's offense in the second half look like they were a top 10 unit. And it's just with how bad Brian Callahan, so far through 4 games has looked like Tennessee's looked worse each week. Like week 1 had a chance to beat the Broncos, but penalties and bad coaching hurt them. Then in week 2, who did they play in week 2? Forget. But like they've just gotten worse. Like the past 2 weeks against the Colts and then the Texans got blown out by both teams. They've just looked worse each week. And they played the Rams in week 2 and looked pretty good, but then like played pretty well in the first half and then just couldn't really do anything in the second half and blew the game. Like they looked worse each week, and I think eventually the Brian Callahan's firing and like Arizona gets back on track, 3-2, and in a really competitive NFC West, get over 500. Moving on, Washington at the Chargers. It looks like Jaden Daniels and Terry McLaurin will be back for this game for Washington. Huge for them. Even though this offense really hasn't missed a beat without them, it's been the defense. But Joe Alt looks like he'll be out at least a couple weeks, so most likely this game and a couple more. And I'm going with Washington on the road to get the win. We saw, and Washington doesn't have the greatest defense, but I think without the top 2 tackles, um, this offense isn't going to be as potent as it was early on in the season when Joe Alt was left tackle, and then they kind of were just moving guys around at right tackle and playing pretty well. I think without their top 2 tackles, Khalil Mack obviously still out. I think Washington takes advantage of LA's injuries and on the road gets a huge win. Moving on to the Lions at the Bengals. I'm taking Detroit against a not so good Cincinnati defense. Detroit's offense should clicking as it has been. I mean, they look like the best team outside of maybe the Eagles and Rams in the NFC. That they're up there with one of the best. I think at home, Cincinnati, I think might be better, but at the same time, I just don't trust this offense. Yes, has played 2 really good defenses in Minnesota and Denver, but has not really looked the greatest. I think against another Super Bowl contender. I mean, against another really good team. Cincinnati's just going to get beat and fall to 2-3. Moving on to Sunday Night Football. Patriots at the Bills. New England trying to get their first win against Buffalo since, well, their first real win. Week 18 of last year. It was, well, the first win in Buffalo since 2021. But I don't think it happens. Even though the Bills have been injured in the last couple of weeks against Miami and New Orleans, they've allowed these teams to stay in these games. And New England is better than these two, so I think they will keep this one close. But I just trust Buffalo at home to get the win and move to 5-0. And then finally, Monday Night Football, Chiefs at the Jags. Kansas City coming off a dominating win against a not so great Ravens team. It looks like and taking on a Jacksonville team that came off a huge win on the West Coast against the Niners. And I'm going to pick Jacksonville. I think this defense will be able to not shut down Chiefs offense, but I think they'll be able to contain the Chiefs offense, unlike what the Ravens were able to do. And I think this offense has started to get it going. I think they, are making the plays that we all kind of thought they were when Liam Cohen was hired. I think they could be 4-1 and looking like a maybe for real deal Super Bowl contender. But that will be it. Hope you guys enjoy the video. Hope you guys subscribe, hit the like button, hit the notification bell so you get notified whenever I post a video. Hope you guys have a great day, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye.